Locho sampo pa gyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pelge drolor zampe ze parache palden lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara sumatimo nisha sane karp Uta varda nishri bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nishasane Karu Uta Varda Nishri bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nishasane Karu Uta Varda Nishri bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Pakyuke kudan dagi lo pakyuke sundan dagi nga pakyuke tukdan dagi ten yerme chiktu jingi lo makyuke kudan dagi lo makyuke sundan dagi nga makyuke tukdan dagi ten yerme chiktu jingi lo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Swaha Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Chishe Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupa Rasho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Chishe Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupa Rasho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupa Resho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Normally, when we judge things, how important things are for us, when we are going to judge if something it's good or not good, or what's the level of importance, and so on, one of the main things that we take as a reference is how much that object, that situation, meeting that person, or whatever, how much it brings us satisfaction and well-being. That's the main thing, actually. How much it truly makes us more happy. How much it helps us to develop more peace and joy. So, based on this, we have seen very clearly yesterday that if we project our happiness on external things, which is basically projecting our happiness into not being separated from the object of attachment, gaining the object of desire, being away from the objects of aversion. In our own illusion, we think, yes, if I'm able to do that, then I will be happy. But the truth is that it's impossible. And it's so clear that it's impossible, actually, no? But even though we understand, somehow we are still in that illusion. So it's very important to go away, to go beyond that illusion. And in this many, many centuries behind us, within Buddhist teachings, many practitioners, they went to look for the ways how to develop such true happiness. And making it short, the main way to develop happiness is through the development of wisdom and love. There are many other qualities inside, but we can condense it into love and wisdom. Okay? This is the essence of what we must develop. If we truly develop love and wisdom, then the conditions in which we are doesn't make that much difference. We're able to deal and to relate very positively to wherever we are, with whoever we are, and so on. So, the problem that we have nowadays, and that is it's nothing new, the practitioners have had it for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries, was always there, is that we can understand things, but by understanding doesn't mean that necessarily we realize them. Okay? So even though we understand the importance of loving others, this doesn't mean that we develop great love. Even though we understand the importance that even though we understand that selfishly speaking it's better to be altruistic, this doesn't mean that we become altruistic. The fact that we understand that we shouldn't get angry doesn't mean that we are able to eliminate our anger. And like this we can go on and on. So, these two steps are very important. First we need to understand, but after we need to realize, we need to make it happen within us. And in our lineage, great masters, they always went to look for these two aspects. And one of them was called Atisha Dipankara Shrigana, which is represented on my right side on the big image there with the red hat. Okay. Actually, many of the paintings we have here are representing the masters of our lineage, because it's very, very important to have this uninterrupted line of transmission of knowledge and experience. So we have Atisha. Atisha received the teachings of the main, the milestones that we have in our lineage here is Buddha Shakyamuni, then we have Atisha, then there is Lama Tsongkhapa, then there is Kyabche Trichan Rinpoche, that has the guru of Lama Ganche Rinpoche. And we have many, many other masters around. We're not going to enter into the details of each one of them, but that's a long way. Okay. For example, if we look up there, now it's difficult to recognize anyhow. Dromtumpa is there, which was one of the main disciples of Atisha. Anyhow, the fact is that Atisha himself, which was born in the end of the 10th century, and in the end of the 990 something, he was born. And then, so he lived in the beginning of the 11th century. He was a great master already in India. He was born in the north of India, in the state where nowadays is the state of Bengal, where is Bangladesh nowadays. And he was born in a royal family. He was actually a prince, that he gave up the royal life and the possibility to become king in order to be a monk and to follow the Dharma practice. And at one point, first he learned all the part of Tantra. Then after that, he went into Sutra. Actually, he went the other way around. And he had all the knowledge. He had already many disciples, but he understood that there were things that were only knowledge. They were not deeply within himself. And he wanted to develop the two bodhicittas, which is to develop love and wisdom. Relative and absolute bodhicitta. So within his meditation, he got this vision that he should follow the teachings from Guru Suvarnadipa, which was in Indonesia. He was in India at the time. It was not as easy as it is now. Okay, we go, we watch a movie about that master, we look at him, we call, we check, we take a plane, we go, we come back. That's easy, no? At a time, he made a clear decision based on his meditation and based on his intuition. I will go to receive the teachings because he's the one that will help me to develop true love and compassion. So, he left on a boat together with 200 disciples, and they went to Indonesia, which is in the island of Sumatra. They left from more or less the Bengal, so where is Calcutta more or less, nearby Calcutta, where is Bangladesh actually. So they left from there, And it took 13 months for them to get to Indonesia. And it was like really, really difficult. They had so many storms, and it was like very, very danger trip. And I asked one time a person that did a lot of sailing around that area. And I asked, is it possible to take such a long time? And they were saying, oh yes, very much possible, because not only this is an area that has a lot of storms, but it's also an area that is very difficult to sail, and the currents bring you always back. So basically, that he was, and he stayed there for 13 months traveling. And then he reached there. Why put all this energy? To look for whatever gives him the greatest joy and happiness, which is to develop great love and wisdom. So he went there, he met this Guru Suvarnadipa, and then he stayed there for 12 years. 12 years listening to his teachings, staying together with him. And based on that, after 12 years, he came back to India, and it was more or less the time when actually the kingdom, the Buddhist kingdom where he was staying in Indonesia, it was actually falling apart, because there was an invasion and so on, and this was more or less the same time in which he left and went back to India, to Bangladesh, where now today Bangladesh. And some years later, he went to Tibet. Okay, and the teachings that he received in Indonesia from Guru Savanadipa were in essence how to transform one's mind into true love and wisdom. And he kept this teaching secret for a long time. And he was waiting one of his main disciples, which was called the Dromtempa, to give these teachings. Because they're simple teachings. The methods to develop wisdom and love are simple, but they need to be truly truthful. Not easy, but they are simple. So he gave to very few disciples, that gave to very few disciples, that gave to very few disciples. It was a kept secret for a long time, until it came to Geshe Chekawa, and he made it public, writing the 7 points mind training, which is passed by from master to disciple. And we are very fortunate because we receive it here today with us, coming from an uninterrupted lineage. This lineage was kept pure in the monastery of Tashilumpo, where I received these teachings. So, in this way, we can go back up to Lama Tsongkhapa and up to Atisha and up to Shantideva and Nagarjuna until reaching Buddha Shakyamuni. Okay, so this is something that we are extremely fortunate to have contact with this uninterrupted lineage. Also because it's completely different, the fact that if I take a book, I read it, I think it's nice, and I explain it. And the other thing is I receive this from a master that have the knowledge and the experience, that received from his master, that received from his master, until we go back and back and back through the whole lineage. Okay? So we have this preciousness, and we will start sharing it today. That's why we start with the transmission of the text. Okay? So, I would like to start by reading the first lines of one text, which is the text that I received the full transmission and explanation, which is called Lojong Nime Öser. It was written by one master called Horton Nankapel, which was a disciple of Lama Tsongkhapa. He stayed 12 years receiving teachings from Lama Tsongkhapa. And he's the one that transcribed the teachings on mind training, the commentary on the 7 points mind training of Lama Tsongkhapa. He's the one that wrote it down. And it's called Lojong Nime Öser, which it means the mind training as the sunlight. Okay. So this text starts with a very beautiful praise to the lineage gurus. And I would like to read this to you, okay? So I will read first in Tibetan, then I will make an improvised translation, okay? Chamda ninje tsawa lechungwe, chanchu simgi trusing lek damte, jindru duwa shi tarchen char, hlöpa mebe tsundru lungi kyo, löchen korwet söle rab tralte, namke yeshin lintu tidze pa, tepön chogyur tube wambo dang, jamba tome yinye loden shap, jamyang ludru pakpa shiwalha, serling gyabo pande atisha, gyalwe jungne kuche namsum so, gyöpar chebe shabla kucha tsel. Shinta chembe lamso soso nam, madre salwar chene lek dompa, niktu gyawa niba tsonka pa, jamya chembo shabla kucha tsel. Teye lekpar dompe, damba cho, jancho semla kompar, shebe tsul, yangda chishin dagi shebar cha. Tekcho lamge kalde tangwe nyun. So, it says, from the root of love and compassion comes the boat of bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is seen as a boat, the mind of enlightenment, the mind that wishes to develop one's own qualities to the maximum potential in order to help all sentient beings, so called the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, is represented as a big boat. This boat, which arises from the root of love and compassion. So we can say that like love and compassion is like the root from which comes the wood from which is made the boat. Okay? So this big boat that arises from the root of love and compassion is chosen. And above this boat are opened the big sailing, how to call the sails. Okay? So the sails of the 6 perfections and the 4 dharmas of sharing the dharmas, doing oboshi, of the 4 dharmas of gathering disciples are open, which is the sails, or the sails are the sails of generosity, of compassion, of the generosity, morality, patience, joyful effort, concentration, and wisdom. Plus the other 4 sails here are the sails of the 4 actions in order to be able to guide others on the path to enlightenment, which is to give materially, to speak gently, to explain clearly, and to be an example of one's own teachings. Okay? So this is the 4 dharmas in order to guide others to the path to enlightenment. So these are seen, so we have from the roots of love and compassion appears this boat of bodhicitta, on which are opened the sails of perfections, which is then, driven by the wind of joyful effort. So with the wind of joyful effort, the sails of perfection are blown, and the boat of bodhicitta goes. Loba mebe tsundru lungi kyo. Luchen korwe tsöle raptalte namke yishin lintu tserebacha. And this boat takes the sentient beings that are in the state of suffering through the ocean of samsara and takes them to the continent of the wish-fulfilling continent of enlightenment. So it represents bodhicitta as a big boat that is taken with the sails of perfections and the wind of constant joyful effort. And then what's the function of this boat? To take sentient beings from the state of sorrow of samsara to the wish-fulfilling continent of enlightenment. So, the excellent captain, which is Buddha Shakyamuni, that guides this boat. So this boat is being conducted by Buddha Shakyamuni as the conductor, as the captain. So to the captain that conducts this boat that takes sentient beings towards enlightenment, so to the most excellent captain, Buddha Shakyamuni, Maitreya, Asanga, Le Bon Yignin, Le Denshap, to Buddha Manjushri, Nagarjuna, Shantideva, Guru Suvarnadipa, Pande Atisha, Gyalwe Jungne Kuche Namsum, which are the main three disciples of Atisha. And to all the masters of the lineage, to their holy feet, I place my head and I prostrate. So I prostrate to all the gurus of the lineage, and here the main gurus of the lineage are cited as the ones that guide this big boat of bodhicitta through the six perfections and constant effort, and which is born from their love and compassion, and guides sentient beings from the ocean of samsara to the continent of liberation. Shinta Chembo Lamso Soso Nam Madre Selwar Chenne Lek Dompa. You who have cleared the path to enlightenment without mixing the path together and making it very clear to all of us through your kind teachings. In these degenerate times, you are the second Buddha, Lama Tsongkhapa. You who are inseparable of Buddha Manjushri, to you I prostrate, which is the root guru of Hortonam Kapal, who writes the text. Te lekpar dombe damnga chok. The excellent teachings, the excellent instructions that you have given, you Lama Tsongkhapa have given, which shows the way how to familiarize oneself with bodhicitta, to familiarize oneself with love and wisdom. Yanda Chishindagi Sheparcha, I will explain in the best of my abilities. You excellent ones who find yourself on the path of Mahayana, on the Mahayana path, please listen with attention and a clear mind. Okay. So this was taught by, it's the very beginning of this text, and it was taught by Hortonam Kapel. And I don't know how much it may be clear to all of you, but to make request of prayers for the lineage and to make this connection with an uninterrupted lineage is something very important during the teachings. Okay? So now let's go to the text. Before we start reading the text, I will just do first the transmission. Okay? So in this small booklet that I have prepared for you, there are some texts, and actually, in this very small booklet here, for me is one of the most precious things that I have ever got. If I take from everything, if I need to give a price to it, I will give every money that I've ever got in order to exchange for this. In the sense that this is a guidance to develop love and wisdom, and what do we have more than that? Truly speaking, for me, what we have here in this booklet, it's more precious than almost anything else. Okay, if we put this booklet with self-healing, then don't need anything else. Okay, so it's not just whatever thing booklet. It's something very, very precious, very, very special. So in this booklet we have few texts, which is the text, the Jewel Garland of the Bodhisattva from Atisha. Then there is the 8 verses of mind training from Geshe Larentampa, and the 7 points mind training from Geshe Chekawa, which we are going to see these days. And then we have the last one from Panchen Lobsang Chokyi Gyaltsen, which is called The Medicine to Vomit the Inner Tumor of Selfishness, basically. And the last text is like, for a little bit, I say, is not allowed for under 18 years old, in the sense that it's a text, very powerful text of self-criticism, but the whole Lamrim is inside, and it's a not well-known text, even though it was written from one of the most important masters of our lineage. It's not so well-known, and we had translated for ourselves. And it is a text that, if you read it right away in the beginning, it's maybe too strong. It's like once you have already more knowledge of the practice and some more experience, then it's better to read this text. Okay? So I will give you now the transmission of the 8 verses of mind training and of the 7-point mind training. Okay? So now as we do the transmission, we visualize that above me there are my gurus, Kyabche Lama Kanche Rinpoche, there is the abbot of Tashilompo Kache, Losam Punso Rinpoche, there is Kyabche Dragon Rinpoche, which were the masters mainly through whom I received these teachings. Above them there are their gurus such as Kyabche Dema Gonsa Rinpoche, Then there is Kyabche Trichan Dorje Chang, Paponka Rinpoche. Then going up to Panchen Lobsang Chokyi Gyaltsen, and then going through Lama Tsongkhapa, reaching Atisha. Then there is Nagarjuna, Asanga, Buddha Maitreya, Manjushri, and Buddha Shakyamuni. So this is the line of transmission. So imagine from each one of them is like this line of light that goes from heart to heart until it reaches my heart, and from my heart it goes to the heart of each one of you. Because when we talk about the text is not made only of words, but it's also the essence of the meaning, which is then transmitted also in this way. Okay? Lojong Tsige Ma Shu So Dani Simchen Damche La Yishi Norbole La Be Dunjo Druba Zamba Ye Dado Jebra Zimbra Shu Kando Sudan Drobe Tse Dani Kunle Mentashin Shin La Samba Daba Ye Dado Jebra Zimbra Shu Chulam Gundo Rangyo La Toche Nyomo Kema Dada Shin Maron Chebe Na Tsenda Done Dobra Shu Ranshi Ngembe Simche Nye Dikdo Trabo Nundun Se Rinchen Terdan Treba Shin Yebar Kawe Chinsin Shu Dala O Dala Shinge Tradogi Shekur La So Miripe Kyunga Rangi Lemba Dan Gyagan Shin La Bilwar Shu Kanla Dala Kanla Dagi Penda Pa Rewa Chewa Kanshik Shindu Mire Nechena Shenyen Damba Tawara Shu Dorna Ngodan Gyuba Ye Pende Manan Kunlab Mi Nwedan Dunga Kunya Sangwe Dala Lembra Sho, Deda Gungan Chogye Tobe Timban Pama, O Tobe Time Mabanshin, O Mabashin, Chogun Gumar Shebelo, Sheme Chingwa Le Trole Shon. Tekpa Chimbo Lojong, now the 7-point mind training, le addestramento mentale in 7 punti. Tekpa Lojong Dun de Metsawa Shuso, Tuje Chimbola Jatse Lo, Chugun Sumbra Tembe, Chire Tseba Chewa Tem, Menga Du Nimbo de Selim Bane Guba Yen, Damala Guba Kebe, Chire Chugi Chewa Tem, Dorje Nima, Junshin Shin, Shundun Laso, Shebra Cha Nima Ngabo, Deba Je, Janjo Lam De Gurwai, Damba Ngegi Loma, Chitra Tribra, Dida Triba, Rimbala Tunsen Dungi. Tambo ngondro gi tengi che temba ni tambo ngondro talalap lelen tamche che la da kula ka rin che wa gon ton le ni bo pe ma jan lembe kore rane tsa tini long la kyun bar yusun tu sum ge tsa sun che ge me nga dur de pa tla chen la de la chen ba kurwe chlom gundu tse ge jan temba tomne sawa ten chuna mi lan tabro sa ma ge ri pe shila nimbo ni gyan ra sa ro lam ge ngo wo kun she nga la sha tun sang gyu me ki bur cha Nuju dikpe kangwe tse kinge janju lamdo gyur chila kanto gomdo jar churwa shiden tabki cho. Menga du tse menga nimbo durdu pa tonga dadan jarwa jan tekchen powe damga ge tonga nido tonga niyen chulam che. Chogun gomba chikdu du wambo nigyan tsobro son ishi. Ide bashi gyundu ten chon changwe tse nye loba yin. Chona chonda chenpo nga den yin yingyan tumna jomba yin. Chidin sumla tatu la dumba gyur la ranso shayan la nyamba jami cha shincho kanya mi samo nyambo kanche ngun Trebu rewa tamche pan tukchen ki se pan shung sambo mi ten shange mi gu chang mi gu ne la mi ab tse kala lang la mi che tolo mi cha gyo ge tse mi gyo ge tse gi mi gyo ge tse mi te la du du mi aba ki ge yan la o ki ge yan la tu du mi tsul Nel giorno tamje chige chalona tamje chige cha toda nila chawa nibo kanjon nibo kanjon sebra cha nibo sodan de las kawa sumla labra cha gyoye tsowo namso la nyamba meba namsungom telme sumdan dembra cha yula chome yula chome dadu jan kyabdan tincho kun la chen o kolba namla dadu gyun kinshen dala tumi cha tera o tare tsowo nyamsun lang kolo mi cha rejo mi cha tujo du pan tojo nige tarwar cha yuma gong kolo ma dong yulo yu mi cha urche mi dum rangi meba mangwe gyu dunga tamnye kesene dadzin dulwe damga shu tani shiya mi kyo ton. Okay. So we will start in page number 29, where we will read the 8 verses of mind training. And then, because these were the verses that inspired Geshe Chekawa to go to look for these teachings. Okay, then after we start with Geshe Chekawa's teaching. Okay, let me just get also in English. We will do like this. We'll do Tibetan, Italian, English, okay? Dani semchen tamche la yeshi norba le lape tencho drube sampaye tato chebra zimpara shon. May I always cherish all limited beings by considering how far superior they are to wish-granting gems for actualizing the supreme aim. Kantu sudan drobe tse dani kunle mendashi shenla samba takpayi chokdu chebra zimbra shon. Whenever I come into anyone's company, may I regard myself less than everyone else, and, from the depth of my heart, value others more highly than I do myself. Chelang kundu rangyo la tokchin yomo kemata dashin marun chebena tsendab dongne dokparashon. Whatever I am doing, may I check the flow of my mind. And the moment the conceptions or disturbing emotions arise, since they debilitate myself and others, may I confront and avert them with forceful means. Rashi ngebe simche ni diktu chabu nandon se rinchen terdan trebashi nyebra kawe chenzin shom. Whenever I see beings instinctively cruel, overpowered by negativities and serious problems, may I cherish them as difficult to find as discovering a treasure of gems. Dala shenge trado gi shekura laso mirikpe kyonga rangi lemba dan gyalka shela bulwar shon. When others, out of envy, treat me unfairly, with scolding, insults, and more, may I accept the loss upon myself and offer victory to others. Kala dagi penta pan rewa chewa kanshigi shindo mire neche na shenyen damba tawar shon. Even if someone whom I have helped and from whom I harbor great expectations were to harm me completely unfairly, may I view him or her as a hollowed teacher. Dorna ngudan gyupa ye pende manam kunla bul mi nedan dunga kun sanwe dala lembra shon. In short, may I offer to all my mothers, both actually and indirectly, whatever will benefit and bring them joy. And may I hiddenly accept on myself all my mother's troubles and woes. Deda Guingyan Chöge Ge Tope Time Mabakshin Chogun Gyumra Shebel Sheme Chingwa Le Trol Shon. through a mind of unterrichtet stains of conceptions concerning the 8 passing things, throughout all of this, and that knows all phenomena as illusion, may I break free from my bondage without any clinging. So, as we go through the 8 points mind training, the 7 points mind training, which are the 7 points? First of all, it's training in the preliminaries. We will see what we mean by that. Then is training in love and compassion, which is training in bodhicitta, training in the awakening mind, the actual practice, which is divided into the conventional awakening mind and the ultimate awakening mind. Conventional awakening mind, love; ultimate awakening mind, wisdom. Then there is the 3rd point, which is transforming the adverse circumstances into the path to enlightenment. Then the 4th point, into the integrated practice of a single life, how to integrate the practice in every aspect of our life. Then the 5th point, the measure of having trained the mind. How do we know, how do we judge if our practice is going well or not? Then we have the 6th point, which is the commitments of mind training, and which the 18 commitments and the 22 precepts of mind training, okay, which are like advices. So basically, in order to be able to train our mind, we must keep these precepts and commitments, okay? So we will start from the beginning. So, the text starts like this. Tuje Chembula Chalselo. Homage to great compassion. Here, Geshe Chekawa starts praising great compassion. And great compassion here, it's both represented as compassion itself, the embodiment of compassion, that is the Guru and the Yidam also. But it's also here, when we praise compassion, it's just like Chandrakirti in the beginning of the commentary on the correct view of reality, the Umajukpa. He starts by praising compassion also. And he praised compassion as saying that compassion is like the water that nourishes the path from the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. The compassion is like the water that is very important because it's the water that nourishes the seed and makes the seed to sprout. It's the same water that makes that seed to grow into a big tree. And it's the same water that allows the tree to give its own fruits, to bear fruits. In the same way, it's the compassion that allows us, love and compassion, that allows us to awaken the seed of enlightenment that is in our mind. It's the same compassion and love that allows us to grow on the path to enlightenment. And it's the same compassion that once we reach Buddhahood will allow us to help other sentient beings and to share the fruits of our enlightenment with others. So, love and compassion, the wish for others to be happy, the wish for others to be free from suffering, is the most important part on the path. It's the essence of our path. It's the root of our path. It's love and compassion. Without love and compassion, nothing is possible. Nothing. So keep in mind this example of the water that allows the seed to sprout, that allows the seed to grow as a tree, and allows this tree to bear its fruits. In the same way, it's the same love and compassion that allows us to awaken the seed of enlightenment, to grow on the path, to reach enlightenment, and to share the fruits of our enlightenment with sentient beings. So, homage to great compassion. The essence of this nectar of secret instruction is transmitted from the master of Sumatra. So, these teachings, which are the essence of the nectar of secret teachings, of secret instructions, which means these are instructions that were transmitted originally to Atisha from Guru Suvarnadipa, as we were explaining before, from Sumatra. And these instructions were kept secrets for generations. That's why they are secret instructions. Okay? And they are like a nectar. A nectar is something that has the essence and has the ability to heal. So this is the nectar. These teachings are the essence of the instructions that has the ability to heal ourselves from our ignorance and selfishness. That's why they are like this healing nectar that can heal us from ignorance and selfishness. You should understand the significance of this instruction as like a diamond, the sun, and a medicinal tree. Which means we should understand that these instructions are like a diamond in the sense that diamond, even though it's a very small piece of diamond, its light that it shines, it can overwhelm the light of any other jewel. Even though we have a lot of gold, a very beautiful golden jewel, one small diamond, the light of that diamond, the shining of that diamond overwhelms that of all the other jewels around. Similar to that, if we just take one part of these teachings and we put them into practice, it overshines, it overwhelms completely the rest of our selfishness. It's like the sun rays, because just as one very small sun rays entering into a dark room can eliminate the darkness of that place, similar to that, just a small part of this practice truly put into practice, a small part of these instructions truly put into practice can clear away selfishness and clear away ignorance. It's like a medicinal tree, because just like a medicinal tree, that a part of its roots or a part of only one small leaf can cure a disease, similar to that, just a small part of these teachings, truly put into practice, can heal ourselves from the sickness of selfishness. Okay. This time of the 5 degenerations will then be transformed into the path of the fully awakened state. There are different ways how to describe the 5 degenerations, but we can go into this one, which is, there is the degeneration of time, in which time itself has always a lesser value, and we can see this quite clearly. There is the generation of the beings that live, which means that their mental defilements get stronger and stronger. There is the generation of food, that the food is not able to nourish as before. There is the degeneration of sicknesses, more and more new sicknesses coming. And then there is the degeneration of medicine, that medicine is not able to cure the sicknesses as before. Okay? And for me, it's quite clear that we have all these degenerations, actually. Okay? So what happens is that if we need to wait to have the perfect conditions to do our practice, how long will we need to wait? Lives and lives, most probably. Even, for example, one practice which we need good conditions to do, to develop shamatha and vipassana, perfect concentration. We know there are 8 conditions which are necessary. And from these 8 conditions, one is to be free from objects of distraction. It's difficult nowadays for most of us. And if we are waiting until we get all the right conditions in order to do the practice and so on, it's like endless. Instead, these instructions, they have this very precious aspect through which, as it says here, this time of the 5 degenerations will then be transformed into the path to the fully awakened state, which means through these instructions, in few words, there are no excuse not to practice. I am sick, that's a very good condition to practice. I am healthy, that's a wonderful condition to practice. I am rich, that's a good condition to practice. I am poor, that's a good condition to practice. I am lonely, I am alone, nobody with me, that's a wonderful condition to practice. I am with a lot of people very nice to me, that's a good condition to practice. I have many people harming me and being nasty to me, that's an even better condition to practice, There is no any situation that is not a condition to practice. So the wonderful thing of these teachings, which make them so precious, so valuable, these instructions, is that these instructions will guide us on how to transform each and every circumstance of our lives, good or bad. And the worse the circumstances get, the better it is to practice. The stronger the practice can become. So, it is completely valuable, this, because in a moment in which we live in a condition where it's so difficult to find the best conditions for our spiritual path, here, every moment can be transformed into the path to enlightenment. Every situation, every condition, good or bad, can be transformed through these instructions as the path to enlightenment. Okay? And this by itself makes it as one of the most valuable things that we can have. Okay. Well then. Primo punto. One thing also which I didn't say. This text, it was written by Geshe Chekawa, and we have here a short biography of Geshe Chekawa. Geshe Chekawa was born in the year 1054 and died in the year 1123. And Geshe Chekawa himself wrote this text, but in the centuries that came later, different versions of the text came out because there was not so much publishing and so on. So in the beginning of the 20th century, Paponka Rinpoche was requested to write one version of the text which was correct. So he took all the existing versions of this text and he read all the important commentaries, and based on the commentaries and the versions, he made one coherent version. He edited and made one coherent version, which is the one that we have here. So the parts that you have in italic and the parts that you have in bold are actually the parts that were added by Paponka Rinpoche as instructions to help us to understand the text. Okay? And the actual original text is the other parts which did with the normal letter. Okay? So we go now to the first point. The first point is called first of all, the text says, first, train in the preliminaries. To train in the preliminaries, it means that first of all, we need to develop the basis in order to be able to develop love, compassion, and wisdom, relative and absolute bodhicitta. The preliminaries are not recitation and meditation. The preliminaries are, we need to develop, first of all, the awareness of the preciousness of this life, the certainty of death, impermanence. The preliminaries, training ourselves in the law of karma, in the general and specific suffering of samsara, in taking refuge. These are the preliminaries that we are talking about. Okay? So which in other words means before actually loving others, first we need to love ourselves. First we need to train ourselves in the preciousness of this life, into the certainty of death, into the law of karma, into the general and specific sufferings of samsara, and into taking refuge. These are the preliminaries that we need to do. So let's start briefly from the first. I will just go to the very essence point, and tomorrow I will start in English explaining this in a longer way, okay? So, the fact is that if we don't have the basic conditions to practice the spiritual path, it's not possible to do unless we are already very, 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 very well much developed from the very beginning. Which means, what we really want most of all is to be happy. And we have seen that just through material development, it's not enough to be happy. The way to happiness is to develop our inner qualities such as love and compassion and wisdom and so on. But if we put our hand on the hinge of the door and we close the door and we start to feel pain, and even, our fingers starts to break and very painful. While we have our hand in the hinge of the door and it's very painful, can we start thinking, all sentient beings, and I need to develop patience and the correct view of reality. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes, and let's understand better the mind and this and that? No. What's the only priority at that moment? take away the hand from the hinge of the door, stop the pain. Okay? Which means when we have very strong physical pain, physical suffering, the priority is to take away that suffering, unless we are already very much developed spiritually from the very beginning. But for most of us, the priority is eliminate the pain. So there are many people in this world that are born in a state of pain. They are born in hunger. When we are very hungry, I mean very hungry, do we have space, in inner space, to meditate? To think about the benefit of others? To develop patience and equanimity and so on? No. What do we need? Food. There are around 2.5 billion people in this world that are born in hunger, that live in hunger, that die in hunger. So they don't have the basic conditions to practice the Dharma, which doesn't mean they are inferior than us. Simply they don't have the good conditions we have, that's all. Because if we take any one of us and we put in that conditions, no difference really. Huh? I'm quite sure if you take almost any one of us, I cannot say for everyone because I don't know if there is any Buddha between us, but if you take otherwise any one of us, and you put inside the conditions, inside of war, inside of famine, inside of very difficult sickness and of pain and hunger and so on, I wonder where we can get the space to practice the Dharma. It's very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult. So making short, if we don't have the minimum material conditions, the minimum health conditions, our senses functioning, if we are slaves of material things, many of us are slaves of money, slaves of power, slaves of pleasure, which means we don't find space for anything else in our lives. There is no space to practice Dharma, to develop our qualities. And why it's so important to practice Dharma? Which means to have a sincere wish to develop one's own inner qualities, to find someone that guides us correctly, to have the effort and the energy to put energy into our own practice. It's not obvious at all. Even if we look from the people that we know, how many people from all the people that we know, and this is not a matter of judging if they're good or bad people, okay? Nothing to do with that. But from all the people we know, how many are the people that have all the material conditions, that are not slaves of their own gaining money and so on, that they don't need to live only for survival, that they want sincerely to follow a spiritual path, that they have the necessary conditions to follow the spiritual path, having found someone that guides them, and then they put the correct effort to follow such path. From the people we know, how many people are like this? The majority? No. So, the conditions we have are very, very, very rare and very precious, because it's through these conditions that we can develop love and wisdom and stability and patience, accumulate merits, purify our negativities, and through this sincerely grow through the spiritual path and to reach what we all want, which is happiness. So, the second point, briefly, is that even though we have this most wonderful condition, sooner than later it will end. We will die. And until the moment that we are not truly aware, certainty and so rare to have a good health, so good that I have a good mental health, so good that I have material things as I need, and so on. But then what happens? We get completely stressed because we have a pimple. Or because one person said something we didn't like. Or because we didn't get the object of desire. Or because we need to separate from a small object of attachment. Or because it's raining and I wanted sun. I don't know what. Until we do not realize the preciousness of this life, we can get very much busy with little stupid things in our daily lives. And until we do not realize the certainty of our own death, our own mortality, we will continue to live as immortals within our own mortality. just as if we would never die. It's like very often people come and they say, if I die, then you look and you say, which other possibility do you have? So, for our practice, the first two things that we need to develop, in very few words, is the gratitude and the awareness of the precious opportunity we have. And we do that by saying thank you, by developing gratitude, by rejoicing about the good things that we have. Wake up in the morning, rejoice about the good things that we have. Because our tendency is to take for granted the good things that we have. So we need to rejoice it. And the more we rejoice, the more we understand that the easier it will come, the more spontaneous will come this. And second, the impermanence of life, the certainty of death. The more we are aware of our own mortality, the more value we give to each and every day of our life. I don't know for what reason, but when we are very young, it looks like life will still come. Where we reach a certain age, then the life is there, but we cannot really live life because we are busy with our own survival and this and that, and looked like when we were younger we were actually living. Then when we get older, looks like life is already gone. When life is every moment that we live. And what is important in life is not quantity but quality. It's how we live, not how much we live. And the truth is that, when we see each other, we don't know what's going to happen before our next life of meeting each other again. When we go to sleep, we don't know what we will see first, the next day or the next life. Truly. But somehow, we say, yes, I don't know when I'm going to die, but it's okay, today sure not. Tomorrow also not, But truly we don't know. But it's so hard to bring this concept from the head down to the heart. And because of that, we need to repeat it again and again. And there is one idea, a wish I have, which it's not so obvious, but I think part of our training, of our spiritual path, would be very good for all of us to do some voluntary work in a hospital with terminal ill patients, And go there and help to wash and help to be there, to do company or anything. Because then it's a non-conceptual way to realize how fortunate we are and the certainty of our own death. When we meet someone that has our same age and is about to die, it's like a mirror. And it's very important to do that. To understand our own mortality. Not to live with the fear of death, but to live with the awareness of the preciousness of every day. To do the best that we can on every moment, on every day. That's what is so important for us. Okay. And then, so this is the first two preliminaries. Tomorrow we'll go a little bit more in details again in English. And but in essence is this, is we need to train ourselves to recognize how precious this life is and the certainty of our own death. Then come the next preliminaries, which is the law of karma, the general and specific sufferings of samsara, and taking refuge. Okay? And this is the basis to develop after bodhicitta. So actually, when we put the 7-point mind training, only the first training the preliminaries, we could stay here months talking about this. It's not something obvious, but it's something very important for us to do. But at the same time, it's not so complicated either. Okay? But we need to do it, otherwise it won't happen. Okay? Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkara trinle chochur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasumgi Drove muse tatu ne gyuru chi nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan dele kshin Nyinsen takto delekpe, koncho sumke jingelo, koncho sumge ngodrup tsol, koncho sumge trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.